When you are black, you have to be better than everyone to be equal.
And I saw that they're making 12 billion with a
Yeah.
B every year.
Yeah.
And I saw
And not
also,
naira, and not 12 billion naira.
no, 12 billion US dollars, right? Again, that's a traditional tactic to say these people's lives are important and these people's lives are not. We're going to be at odds because I think every human being has that light inside of them and deserves to live.
Hello. I am so excited today because I am talking to this amazing young woman I met in Geneva last year, Chelsea. She is the CEO and founder of Equity Architect, and also heads up the World Economic Forum Racial Equity Group. So Chelsea's background is on racial equity and making sure that us as people of colors, we are seen, we are heard, not just being seen and not heard. So I can't wait for you to just hear this amazing woman and see why I am so drawn to her, because I think this conversation, I don't have any questions actually. I didn't prepare anything because I just wanted the conversation to flow because she's just that amazing. So thank you, Chelsea, for showing up and being so pretty as always. You're not even wearing makeup and look better than me already. I'm so offended. Good
No,
morning.
no, thank you so much, Lindiwe. It's really a joy, a pleasure, and an honor to be invited onto your platform. So excited to anytime I get to chat to you because you are incredible, driven, ambitious, fabulous. I always say that I look up to you, and you're such a dynamic leader and what you've been able to build. I mean, I'm in awe of you. So I'm just so grateful and flattered that you want to have a chat with me. And then on the skin thing, honestly, I went back and forth this morning about makeup, but I just decided, I'm getting on a call with my African sister. She gonna like the natural, she gonna be feeling what I'm when I bring it to the table. So I appreciate you.
You're like, I'm gonna India, Ari, cocktail and blurbs. Yeah, no, my first question for you, because the show is Cocktail and Blurbs, what is your favorite cocktail and why?
Favorite cocktail is actually a whiskey sour, which is surprising to a lot of people, but I'm from the South. I'm from Atlanta, Georgia, Decatur to be specific. And so I grew up around a lot of Southern old men. And what do old Southern men drink? They drink whiskey. So when you're first getting introduced to alcohol, getting taught about alcohol, whiskey is something that, if you're sick, you have the flu, you might have whiskey and a hot toddy. If you have worms in your stomach, as the old people used to say, they might give you a shot of whiskey to clean you out. So even as a child, whiskey is something that was used around the house in home remedies. And then when you get grown and you start going out and being able to drink for yourself, I just always got drawn back to whiskey because it's sweet and sour, it's smoky, it reminds me of the South. And I always add extra cherries to mine, which is a little twist.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that sounds very exciting. I'm going to try that. I used to use whiskey, just a drop of whiskey on the baby's tongue when they were crying too loud. I'm joking. I didn't get them drinking to get them to sleep. I'm joking.
No, there's a lot of home remedies for real that use whiskey, and it's really good. I feel like to have in your home. If just in case you can pop the seal on your Maker's Mark if you need it for anything.
Yeah. Yeah, I want you to tell us about your organization. What is Equity Architect? What do you do?
Yeah, I appreciate this. So, Equity Architect is a startup that I founded. It's a social justice consulting firm.
Mm-hmm.
Now, what does that mean? For me, I started off as an activist when I was only like 14 years old. I was really passionate about the environment and being able to recycle. And on the side of town where I lived, which is mostly Black community, we didn't have access to recycling. But I saw on the north side of town, which was more affluent and more white European background, that they were able to recycle. And so at 14 years old, I joined a campaign with other youth to start a recycling campaign in the south of DeKalb County, where I'm from. And so that was really my first foray into organizing, realizing there's differences between people just based on their race and like their social class, and really feeling like I need to do something about this. Like it's not enough to just notice it. I had to get out there and change something. So from spending the past 16 years as an activist, from Black Lives Matter in the US, organizing here in the UK with a women's group. I'm a part of a feminist collective. So all of that is where the social justice comes in, my activism and my commitment to Black people, to Pan-Africanism, to Black feminism, and to the transformation of our world into a place where every single human being can thrive and live a great life. So when I wanted to think about what type of company I wanted to build. And a lot of my friends were like, start a nonprofit or start a charity. But one thing that I paid attention to was ownership, and how when you have a private organization, you have a lot more freedom and a lot more
Yeah.
ability to do whatever
Yeah.
you want because it's private. Um, and I looked to a large consulting firm, McKinsey and Company. Everybody's familiar with them. And I saw that they're making 12 billion with a
Yeah.
B every year.
Yeah.
And I saw
And
all
not
the,
naira, and not 12 billion naira.
no, 12 billion US dollars, right? A
US
year.
dollars. You have
And
to
I
be,
saw all the
specific here.
scandals, all the corruption, all the bad leaders, all the money they've taken advantage of, all the people they've gotten laid off, all the companies they've destroyed, all the family businesses they ran into the ground for the cause of profit. And I thought to myself, okay, these people who are destroying our world, who are promoting everything that we're trying to transform, the status quo, they're making billions of dollars a year. They're recruiting the best and the brightest from the top universities. So I thought, how crazy would it be if I built a consultancy, but instead of basing it on management accounts, if I based it on social justice, if I based it on social science and human psychology, if we started to bring in technology and the lived experience of indigenous people all around the world who are fighting against colonialism and recovering our, native heritages and our native ways of doing things, our philosophies, our spiritualities, how could we build an organization that advise companies and charities and other organizations based off those principles, and
Yeah.
what could be created. And with the support of my fiance, who stood behind me and said, give it a strong go for a few months. I got you. I'll hold you down. And if you don't make a
Wow.
single penny after, 3, 6 months, then you can go get a job. But right now, I need you to focus on this vision that God gave you. And with his support, I was able to launch a company last year. And, I had to give all thanks to my ancestors, honestly, and God, because they really amazed me in my first 12 months, like doing six figures in business, working with the World Economic Forum, publishing a global report about Black folks who are making change, innovators such as yourself, being able to work with Chatham House, the Royal Institute, the Institute of International Affairs here in the UK, being able to work with a large women's charity to help them get a feminist code of conduct and just transform how they do things. Being able to speak at IBM or, URW Westfield, like these huge companies, to be able to have an influence and bring the voice of a Black, Southern, queer, neurodivergent, spicy brain, loud
Yeah.
mouth, big mouth, little Black girl from Decatur, Georgia, into, these rooms in Geneva, in London, in these different places. It's really been a blessing. And the vision for the company for me is not even to stop here, it's to keep growing. Like, I would love
Yes.
to have offices in Accra, in Joburg, in Atlanta, in DC, in Kingston, in Sao Paulo,
Yeah.
everywhere that Black people are, everywhere that innovation is happening. I'd love to be bringing young people right out of university and getting all that passion they have to change the world and actually channel it into a constructive way to help them build what they want to live in. and be able to look beyond just tearing down the things that they don't like.
Um, as I was going through your profile, preparing for this interview, I read it and I was just so inspired. I mean, you're brilliant, obviously, with your two master's degrees, being a Rhodes Scholar. And I remembered, I think it was 2019 or 2018, because I don't remember when Winnie Mandela died, but we had Reverend Jesse Jackson, and there was one event that he had with Dr. Zweli Mkhize, who was our Minister of Health, but also a patron of Africa Teen Geeks at the time. And I remembered one statement he made that just resonated with me, where he said, when you are Black, you have to be better than everyone to be equal. And it stayed with me because I'm thinking, all these Black people that we admire, they are better. They are like the outliers. How do we get to a point where because I mean, sometimes when not to say there are some, white people who are not brilliant. Yes, there are. But most of the leaders we see are not like, they don't have to have two master's degrees. They don't have to have a PhD from, MIT or Harvard for them to be seen to be brilliant, right? Or, because every time you look at the leadership, if it's a Black leader, this guy is an A student. If it's a white leader, they may just be your Donald Trump kind of like candidates, and that's the fact. So with the work that you are doing, how do you think that affects your consultation, especially if you're consulting with white organizations? Because I feel like if you're focusing on issues of race or women, they sort of like box you into that as if you don't know anything else except just that.
Yeah, that's so true. I just appreciate you bringing up this point. The mindset that you have to work twice as hard, right, to be equal. I was raised with that mantra, right? And I think I see the good in it, right? I see what it is. It's trying to flip discrimination against us into a motivator, right? To be great. And I see that as a positive thing. The issue that I have is that Black people should be able to be regular, just regular. We
Yeah.
shouldn't have to be excellent. We
Yeah.
shouldn't have to be, excel, the top of the class, the most brilliant, the talented 10th, right? In order to deserve
Yeah.
respect and basic decency and access to services and respect from, our government.
And even if you are the top 10, like that you're talking about, I mean, look at Serena Williams and how much discrimination she's still having to deal with. Yeah, she's like 23, time Grand Slam winners. Like, how much do you have to do, right? It's still, if she still has to prove herself, you're like, what do you mean?
And that's exactly right. I realized a long time ago that trying to outperform white supremacy is a never ending battle. You're gonna keep on trying to get degrees, sis, and it's not gonna happen. And I'm being honest, I graduated from Oxford with my third master's, and I was applying for
Wow.
jobs for 9 months. I was waiting tables and cleaning up behind college students because I was just trying to pay my rent, right? With 3 master's degrees,
Yeah.
I'm a Rhodes Scholar. I got 12 years of organizing experience. I have all these things, right? But like you
Mm.
said, when people looked at me and saw my profile, they saw Black, Black, bliggity Black woman,
Yeah.
Black, bliggity Black woman, right? Because I studied African American studies and political science. All of my theses are about Black folks, whether it's the criminal
Yeah.
justice system, whether it's poverty, whether it's feminism, whether it's, the experience of women and the birthing experience. All throughout my academic work, I was looking at the conditions and the experiences of our people. And throughout my time at Oxford, I started to have more of a global perspective, stepping into Pan-Africanism, starting to read new authors, like really starting to expand how I talk about Blackness, even like beyond an American context, to really think about us as a collective indigenous group of African people, right? And the more that I started to speak up about that, the more I felt pigeonholed, the more I felt that my other skills and my other background was overlooked. And realistically, not too long ago, I had to have a conversation with a client and just tell them, like, hey, if you just wanted somebody to help you check boxes and pretend like you were doing DEI, you could have got somebody way less qualified than me to help you do that. Like you
Yeah.
you really didn't need me. You could have got any old person from HR, no disrespect to HR professionals, right? But you could have got anyone from that industry to just do the bare minimum. And the point that you said about excellence is so important to me because one of the things that really differentiates my company and myself is that because of the master's degrees and the Rhodes Scholar and all of that, I have a credibility in a room full of, 70-year-old white men who are the boards, older white men are the power brokers for the most part in economics and politics, no matter which country you're in. And that's the sad truth, right? When you start to look at the money, you start to realize who's actually in control, right? And it's a very small group of people. And so when I'm thinking about who am I talking to and why am I talking to those folks? It's because they're in the positions of power. And I need to pull on those levers of power to transform how everyday Black people experience life. And so for me, it's like my goal is to let me use all these shiny things that you guys are so impressed by. Let me use these master's degrees. Let me use Oxford. Let me use the Rhodes Scholar, the Truman Scholar, all of these things, the World Economic Forum. Ooh, shiny, Chatham House, all these things.
Yes.
I want to use that because there's a lot of other powerful, incredibly insightful, radical organizers who are on the streets, who are in these communities with the same politics I have, but you wouldn't let them in that room to talk to you because they wouldn't, clean up nice and say it the right way. And so my thing is, this is a stealth operation. You think they think, right? When they hire me, they get one of the good ones.
Yes,
Look at all these institutions. She's gonna be a good one. And then I get in there and I turn the heat up. And now it's time to talk about white supremacy and colonialism and this discrimination against Black women. And now it's time to uncover these stereotypes. Now it's time to, and the thing that my clients don't like is I'm not just gonna start with how you treat your employees.
Yes.
No, let's talk about the supply chains. Let's talk about why, okay, you're a charity and you got offices in Kenya and Namibia and Uganda, but they all make fractions of what your home office in Europe or in the UK or the US are getting paid. All of these types of things, that the dynamics that go under the radar. Everybody wants to talk about HR and employees. I'm like, no. How you doing business? And how does that affect people? And that's where I feel like we have to go as a people. And instead of focusing on ourselves as individuals and saying, how can I be perfect? How can I cross every box and get every degree and everything? We got to start thinking about how do we change the system so that we as a people can just be and still be able to thrive and excel. And those people who want to go and get 3 master's degrees just because they want to, they can do that, but not feel like I did, like you have to in order to be taken seriously in the things that you want to do.
Exactly. I mean, I think I remember when I started my master's degree at Columbia University, there was a guy who asked the professor, it was Dr. Art Lang at the time, asking him, if I go back to work and I want to be promoted, because he's been in middle management for a long time and he wanted to become the CIO. He was like, I'm ready. And what do you think I need to do? And he said one thing: you just need to be impressive. People need to be impressed by you. And it's the same thing that I keep telling my kids, that your degrees, where you study, especially if you're Black, is important, right? Especially if you want to be to enter in these rooms that you at, like, getting within the World Economic Forum, where you have all these powerful people that are there. But one thing that I've also seen is that how do you feel like you have to tone down, sort of, when you talk about issues of Blackness and issues of, equality, because, you can't be seen to be too radical, because you're going to scare them off. They're going to feel uncomfortable by you. With the report that you brought, that you just published with the World Economic Forum on racial equity and social justice, how has it been, I would say, accepted?
Yeah. Oh my gosh, Lindiwe, like there's so much. Let me just start by saying that the anti-DEI/anti-affirmative action movement in the United States is very clearly an effort of white supremacists to destroy the gains of Black people, people of color, women, queer folks since the civil rights movement of the 1960s. They're being very clear and very explicit in what they're doing. They even have interviews in the New York Times where the activists are saying, yeah, and this is why we went after this Black woman at Harvard, because we knew this would help us. And this is why we went after this person. So I just want to be very clear that this backlash that we're seeing is constructed, it's designed by a small group of people who are really passionate about rolling back the protections that we have been able to gain.
And it's actually been strategic. I mean, I saw that report, like how it's been like strategic to have people who are sitting and targeting specific people and to make sure that them, there are no Black people in leadership, especially in platforms where they can make a difference.
Exactly. And the reason why I really have to start there is, first off, as a political scientist, nothing frustrates me more than talking about things like they just have to exist. And I'm not saying we are, but I feel like the narrative is, oh, there's just this backlash. And it's like, no, this is a very strategic effort by people who are opposed to these rights and these transformations, using their voice and using their power to challenge it. But what I want to say to that is the way how twisted does our world have to be for you to demonize being awake? Let's just take a moment to think about
Like they
that.
did when LeBron says something, why don't you shut up and play ball?
Exactly. Go back to sleep. Go back to
Yeah.
sleep because, and the reason they told LeBron that is in 1968 when Lee held up that fist at those Olympic Games and had everybody in the world talking about civil rights. That's why they wanted LeBron to keep quiet and go back to dribbling that ball because they know the power that's there, right? When James Brown came out and said, I'm Black and I'm proud, they saw the power that was there. When Huey P. Newton ran for elected office in California, they saw the power that was there in our communities. And that's what's being targeted. So let's be clear. Yes, the people we see being hit right now is DEI and these different programs, Fearless Fund, which is funding for Black women who get 0.01% of all VC funding, by the way.
Yeah.
But they want to say that it's messed up that we have a fund just for Black women. But so I want you to see, and your audience to see, how diabolical and strategic this is, and that it's a real effort to destroy us. But putting that to one side, to respond to your question about the report which you just published, which is called Innovating for Equity, it's a report that shines a spotlight through case studies on these incredible entrepreneurs, innovators, business leaders who are building solutions to business problems, political problems, social problems, and also racial and economic problems all at the same time. And the report is saying, hey, too often we look at these type of leaders who we call proximate leaders, those folks who come from these communities which are marginalized. Too often we look at them as charity, as a handout, as philanthropy or our social corporate responsibility. Let's actually talk about partnership and leadership, right? So we turned about innovation, the products that you're making, the services that you offer, looking at your supply chain. How are you working with and integrating these innovators into your supply chain? And then when you're looking at, we need to be net zero by 2030. There's some incredible green forward focus organizations you can focus with. Oh, you're making a commitment to have gender equality. Okay, there's some incredible Black and brown and indigenous women who you can bring in as subcontractors and partners in your business to help you transform things. So what I'm saying is, it's not just about working with people like me who can help you in terms of the diversity and inclusion space. It's actually about looking at your industry. If you're in aerospace, guess what? It's Black people in aerospace. If you're in tech, guess what? It's indigenous people in tech. Whatever sphere that you're in, whatever industry that you're in. And if you're saying, oh, I can't find a diverse supplier base, or I don't know where they are, you're the problem, not them. It's not the pool. The people are not missing. Your picker is broken and you're struggling to find those folks. That all going back to the reception of the report. I'm going to be honest and say that the World Economic Forum is my client and not my employer. Therefore, I tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. One thing that I find very frustrating is what you said, Lindiwe, which is about, it's almost they treat this work, and I'm saying in general, a lot of organizations treat this work like it's dirty. in the
Yes.
sense of they like to do it in the dark, in the closet, hidden behind the door, in the closed room. They'll tell you how important it is, how much it
Yeah.
matters, how committed they are to it, how they see the economic potential of the continent, how they're so committed to transforming and getting rid of poverty and inequality. You know, in that closed room, they'll tell you everything, and it's wonderful and it's
You need
great.
to, yeah.
And how important you are and your work and how amazing of a leader you are, right? And then when it's time to put you up on that main stage, to give you a
It's
spot
not gonna happen.
in that plenary, right? To put you on that main panel, and I'll just speak about this, Lindiwe, because of your work. I felt strongly that when there are conversations about technology, when there are conversations about young people and digital transformation and all of these things, why is Lindiwe not here? But when it's a conversation about Africa or women or race, you want to have her in the room, and I'm like, no, 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 she needs to be in the tech room. You guys are confusing this, right? Um,
Mm.
and to what you said about whether or not we amplify things. And this is the point I'm trying to get to. And I always say this to my clients. I can't make justice in a closet. So just like you can't hire a cleaner to clean your house and then lock them in a closet, you can't hire an accountant to get your books in order but not show them all of your money and all of your books and all of your accounts. You can't hire an attorney to defend you in something and not give them all the evidence, right? And so
Yeah.
realistically, as I work with my clients to transform, the motto of my company is walk the talk. And actually on my website, I actually say no BS, no gold stars. I'm not here to check boxes. I'm not here to help you look good and say the right thing 1 second and then turn around and do black people dirty the next. And one company or organization I would criticize for that. Organizations will go out and say, "Oh, look at our DI lead. Look at all this funding." But then you turn around and you look at their AI models, and who is it? It's underpaid people in Kenya and Uganda that are actually screening all this stuff and getting traumatized by it and getting no support, getting underpaid, getting taken advantage of, right? And so for me, a lot of the stuff that shines on the surface and people who say the right things, when you really dig into the way they're doing business, it's not the right way. And the last thing I want to say is when you said earlier about sometimes when you speak truth to power, you scare people off. My thing is, if you're scared off by the truth, you should run. You should
Yeah.
run. You
I
should run
love that.
because I'm going to tell it. And if that's not what you want, don't come work with me. If you don't want to walk the talk, go work with somebody else. Hire a marketing firm to help you lie and market. But if you really want to change things, if you really want to make it a safe space for everyone who works at your organization to work there, you really want
Mm.
to address the history of colonialism in your organization, you really want to unpick and unpack bias out of your systems and the way you do things, that's when you give us a call.
Yeah. Wow. That's amazing. Yeah, I love that. I love that. So, my light question going back to, last question for you is, how do you think that your work is going to impact the world in the future, right? Because every time when I look, I think, as you become a parent, you start, I see when I talk to my kids, how I have become so, like I always try to don't do this because this is what it's going to be perceived. Be careful. There's so much of be careful, be careful, be careful, because the world, has not changed for us as Black people. And if you look in terms of what is happening when, for example, even in South Africa, when we talk about issues of race, where people will be like, no, why are you still talking about this, like wanting affirmative action after 30 years of democracy, when it took how many years for apartheid to be, and, to actually be entrenched and to undo these things. It's like gaining weight, right? Gaining weight is easy. Losing it freaking sucks. I'm going through that right now. And I'm like, sometimes I tell the kids when they're eating, I'm like, don't eat that much. I don't have a problem with you eating, but I mean, I think I'm just concerned that you will go through what I'm going through when you have to lose the weight. It's important to eat healthy. It's important to exercise. It's not because I'm fat shaming you and just wanting you to be self-conscious about your weight. I'm saying that because I know that if you don't take care of it, losing it is hard. It's hard. So the discipline is very important. And that's the same thing when you talk about issues of dealing with systematic issues of discrimination that has happened over many years. It will take longer to fix them, just like could take you 2 weeks to gain weight and 3 months to lose the weight you gain in 2 weeks, right? It's the same thing. And I think one issue that has been, obviously affecting me so much is what's happening with the Palestinians. I mean, I am a South African. I know what apartheid looks like, and I can see it, what is happening to them. But then if you look at the systematic way of demonizing them. So now, for example, if you say, I want Palestinians to be free, well, that means you want the other party not to exist, or you are anti-Semitic. No, why can't I have both? Why can't I, say I want the Palestinians to be free, I want them to be seen as humans, without somebody saying to me, if you say you want Palestinians to have a free life, then it means you want the others. No, I'm not. I'm just saying, treat them equal. It can be okay to have 30,000 Palestinians being killed over a mistake. It's not a mistake, over the sins of these guys who went and killed 1,200. It's okay to have 15,000 children being killed, but it's not okay to have one white person killed. And no child. What I'm saying is, no child should be killed. No person should have to, die just for the basic rights for wanting to have the basic rights of just worrying about basic things, the basic things. I mean, I think for Palestinians, all they would like to worry about is simple things like you and I were worrying about weight. They don't have that luxury because they could die anytime. And anytime if one person makes a mistake, or one person breaks the law, then the entire community could be killed because one person went and did the wrong thing. That collective punishment, and it's being seen as okay because it's people of color. It's not okay, what is happening in Ukraine, but it's okay what is happening in Palestine. How, those kind of things. And the only thing when you look at it is that the others are white, the others are black. It's just, the others are white, the others are non-white. And that's it.
Exactly. I really appreciate you bringing up Palestine, and I just want to take a moment and acknowledge all the people in Palestine, but also in Gaza and in the West Bank who are under siege right now, and what you said, for me, the first thing I have to bring up, obviously, is white supremacy. Guess what, guys? I'm a racial justice person. That's what I do. But realistically, why is it so easy for us to dehumanize some folks? Why is it so easy for us to paint certain folks with a broad brush, right? And so no one would think it's acceptable to say every German is a Nazi. No one would think that's acceptable. Because how can you call all Germans Nazis? But y'all can call all Palestinians Hamas. And you can just paint that brush, and that's perfectly fine. From the babies that we saw walking out in an open field and just being killed in the airstrike, these are the types of things that I just want to say as a human being are unconscionable. And realistically, you have everyone from the doggone, Prince of the United Kingdom all the way through to the most average person on the street who are going out in these protests all around the world and saying, this is not okay, not in our name, we don't accept this. The other thing that I just want to say about the battling the two lives against each other, again, that's a traditional tactic to say these people's lives are important and these people's lives are not. But what I want to say about the whole narrative of, well, if you say that you support Palestinians, then you're against Israelis, or you're anti-Semitic, or you're not supporting Jewish people. My response to you is to ask you the question. If the year was 1852, and I said, I think all the enslaved Africans should be free, and you said you hate the slave masters, you want them all to die, you're trying to kill all of the slave masters, you want them all to die, you want everybody who owns slaves to just kill over dead right now. everyone say that's ridiculous. No, I just
Yeah.
want to not enslave these people. And the only person who's putting violence in between their freedom is you.
Yeah.
The only reason Nat Turner needed to use violence was because he was in a violent environment. So I'm against violence in every context. In war, in domestic situations, I don't think you should fight. I don't think if somebody makes you mad, you should hit them in the mouth. I don't think you should drop bombs on anyone. I'm against violence in every context. I'm against exclusion in every context. I'm against Islamophobia. I'm against anti-Semitism. I'm against transphobia. Anytime you're putting any human being out and pushing them out of the light of God and saying, you're not human, you're not enough, you don't deserve to live, your children don't deserve to be safe, we're going to be at odds. Because I think every human being has that light inside of them and deserves to live. And ultimately, that's why I do the work that I do. Because human beings shouldn't be on, your life matters and your life doesn't, based on what side of an imaginary line you live on. And that's the
Yeah.
truth about the difference between Israelis and Palestinians. They live on opposing sides of an imaginary line. They live
Mm.
in, a system that has created apartheid that separates them. But realistically, their religions are more similar than they are different. Their
Yeah.
messiahs are more similar than they are different. Their spiritual traditions, their food, their culture, the way they dress, the things they eat, all of it, they're more similar than they are different. And it's these imaginary things that keep us apart from each other as human beings. And that's what my work, and ultimately all of us who are working towards equity, that's what we're doing. We're tearing down these invisible lines of white supremacy, colonialism, foolishness, that separates us from each other as human beings, and saying, no more, it's enough. Let's work together.
Wow. Thank you so much. This has been so amazing. And I think, as a parting question for you, my last is that if you were to create a cocktail that represent your work, what would that be and why?
Okay, if I was to create a cocktail to represent my work, I think I would call it Melanin Surprise. It
Mm.
would be a brown drink. So think like a whiskey or a rum. But when you looked at it, you would think, oh, that looks like an old fashioned, or like that looks like, a pretty bitter drink, or like a male drink or something, whatever. And you take a sip of it and it's like fruity, peaches, mangoes, like very
Mm.
tropical. And the reason I would call it Melanin Surprise is that's what I feel like at the end of the day, so many Black and Indigenous folks all around the world have to offer. When you look at us, the stereotypes and all the things that you see on the outside, but if you would just come in a little closer and take a sip, my God, you would see the creativity, the joy, the passion, the creation, the innovation,
Mm.
the entrepreneurship. Like, we are it. We are amazing. We're everything. We're fantastic. And so come and take a sip of the Melanin Surprise, because you never know what it
Hmm.
tastes like.
Exactly, the unbreakable spirit, the how we find joy in everything. As they say, once you go black, you can't go back. Anyway, thank you so much, Trey. Sis. It's been amazing. And guys, please follow Chelsea on LinkedIn and Facebook. I haven't seen you on Twitter. Are you on Twitter?
Twitter at Miss Chelsea Ann, Instagram. I'm also on TikTok at Equity Architect. But if you just look up Equity Architect, you'll find us. Thanks so much, Lindiwe. Always a joy and a pleasure to chat to you.